Alrighty, so today we are going to continue on this chapter 6 adventure. Yes, it is the last chapter, so it's kind of a good thing that we were a little bit ahead.
So we can miss that window.
So, not necessarily, but so last week when we covered substitution and elimination, that was enough for you to do problem number 1. With what we covered on Monday, so this was last Wednesday, whatever day that was. When we covered on Monday, now I deleted, I went and if you haven't done it, on problem number 6, I took it off.
I did it.
I did it.
Okay, the interest.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Keep it.
I'm kidding. I didn't breathe. Okay, so problem 1 and 6 are done. With what we did on Monday, you should be able to do problems 2 and 3. With what we're going to do today, you should be able to do problems 4 and 5. Now, I already saw somebody already did them all. Great.
But I did it by substitution. I did it not by Gaussian.
Yes?
So, yeah.
Okay. Now, also, listen. With what we're doing today, you should be able to do 6-2. So you should be able to finish the assignment that says 6-1, 6-3, and 6-2 after we finish today.
So, but none of those are already due?
No, I need to change the dates because everything's going to be due.
Yeah, because I haven't touched my mouth.
Well, we need to get on it. So, first thing first. Something we have not covered that we didn't cover in substitution elimination are special cases. So we covered substitution elimination every time we got an answer, right? An X and a Y, an X and a Y. Now, if you recall when we did graphing, we said when lines intersect, you get a point. But then your lines could also be parallel. And what's the solution to parallel lines? No solution. And then when you get a line on top of a line, then that's what? Huh?
Infinite.
It's infinitely many solutions. So we're going to cover those 2 cases right now mathematically. So special cases, the first one is x minus 3y equals to 1, negative 2x plus 6y equals to 5. So when we look at these two, at this system, at these 2 equations, you have the choice to either solve by substitution or elimination. I told you last week I am very biased and I prefer elimination. So in order to do elimination, I need to multiply the top equation by what? 2. So I will multiply this guy by 2. 2 times x?
2x.
2 times negative 6y. Negative 3y. So sorry. It's negative 6y. 2 times 1 is 2. We didn't do anything to the bottom, so we just rewrite it. When I do this, my purpose, my goal in my mind when I multiply by 2 was to get rid of the x's. Does that happen?
Yes.
But what happens to your y's?
They're getting rid of as well.
It goes away. So do you have anything left over here? No. So we put a 0. What is 2 plus 5?
7.
7. Is 0 equal to 7?
No.
This is a false statement. This is not true. So therefore, this is a no solution problem. This is no solution, which means my lines are parallel. Are we good? Now, the second special case, 2x plus 3y equals to 6, 4x plus 6y equals to 12. So, I want to eliminate my x's. I multiply the top by a. Negative 2 times 2x, negative 4x, negative 2 times 3y, 6y, negative 2 times 6,
Negative 12.
Rewrite the bottom all the way through. So when I do this problem, oh look, your x's cancel. Oh, my y's cancel. So this is 0. But guess what? Your 12 also cancels. Is 0 equal to 0?
Yes.
This is a true statement. Because this is a true statement, then we have infinitely many solutions. So these are the two special cases. So infinitely many solutions, remember you have a line when it's graphed right on top of the other, so they intersect every single place. 0 is equal to 0, 1 is equal to 1, 2 is equal to 2. It's always true. Now, how does this look in matrices with what we learned on Monday? So let's do the first problem. Problem number 1. If I change column number 1 into a matrix, my matrix is going to be 1, -3, -2, 6, and 5. Now, if you recall, we said that the first thing I need is a 1. Guess what? It's already there. Perfect. The second thing we need is to make this guy a 0. Now, yesterday that I taught this at the high school, I think I came up with a better sentence than the one we used here. And it says here, to make a 0, you multiply the row with the 1. So which row has a 1?
The top.
So row 1, right? You multiply it by the opposite of the number you want to make a 0. Which number do I want to make a 0?
Row 2.
The -2. So the opposite of a -2 is?
2.
+2. And then it says, and you add the row you want to make a 0. Which row do I want to make a 0? Row 2. So I think this sentence is better. I'll let you copy it, take a picture before you leave. It just explains it a little bit more. It's just more writing or whatever. But if you understood with what we covered on Monday, stick to that. Alrighty. So this is going to give me my new row 2. So 2 times row 1, which is 1, plus the -2. 2 times row 1, which is a -3, plus the 6. And 2 times the 1 plus the 5. So when I do the math for this, did I do anything to the top?
No.
So we copy it down. It stays. What's 2 times 1 minus 2? 0. Awesome. What's 2 times -3 plus 6?
0.
And what is 2 times 1 plus 5?
7.
7. When this happens, that you have a 0 here and a 0 here and a 7, or a number, it could be any number. So anytime that you have 0, 0, but an actual number here, you should know, hey, that's no solution. I don't have to do anything else. I stop there. That's it. I'm done. Now, this is what a no solution looks like, but let's figure out what an infinitely many looks like. So problem number 2, I have a 2, 3, 6, 4, 6, 12. So what's the first thing I want to do?
Make the 2 a 1.
Make the 2 a 1. And that's the easiest thing. To make something a 1, you multiply by the reciprocal. Reciprocal. What is the reciprocal of 2?
1 over 2.
1/2, right? So I need to do 1/2 times row 1. So it is 1/2 times 2. 1/2 times 3. And 1/2 times 6. So I didn't do anything to the bottom. The bottom stays 4, 6, and 12. But the top, what's half of 2? 1. What's half of 3? 3 halves. 1.5 or 3 halves. Remember, try to stick to fractions. What's half of 6?
3.
3. 6 over 2, which is a 3. So I've made that 2 a 1. Yay. Now I have to make this 4 into a 0. So remember, multiply the row with a 1. Which row has a 1? Row 1. Multiply by the opposite of the number you want to make a 0. So it's a 4, -4. And I want to add it to the row you're trying to make a 0, which is row 2. So we're not doing anything to row 1, but this is -4 times 1 plus 4. -4 times 3/2 plus 6. And -4 times 3 plus 12. I didn't do anything to the top, so it stays. But in the bottom, -4 times 1 plus 4 is 0. -4 times 3/2 plus 6.
0.
-4 times 3 plus 12.
0.
So when you end up with all zeros, my answer is going to be infinitely many. But there is something you have to do. Infinitely many solutions, but there is something you have to do. Now, what do you have to do? I know that this here, my equation on top is x plus 3/2 y equals to 3. Because my answer, when you have an answer, your answer consists of x and y, correct? That means I need to solve this for x. So how do you solve this for x?
Subtract 3/2 y.
Subtract 3/2 y, subtract 3/2 y, and I get x equals -3/2 y plus 3. This is the answer that goes here, -3/2 y plus 3. Now, do you have anything left in the second row for a y? We just put a y.
And you only do that on infinity.
You only do that when the bottom row is all zeros.
What if the top row won't?
No, it won't happen.
Okay.
It won't happen. Sorry.
So why does it equal 0?
No, because your variables has to be, because they're going to be equations. Because you need to understand, if it's infinitely many, that means you're graphing 2 lines. So this is the way they do it. Now, in your problems, when you have x, y, and z, every single thing has to have a z. Because, so your x is going to have something z, your y is going to have something z, and your y this is not going to be y, it's going to be z. Because everything's going to be in terms of z. Everything here is in terms of y because we have x and y.
Are you going to do one of the 3x3?
Yes, we are. So I first want to give you another one 2 by 2 like this, so you could just practice with how it's supposed to look. So let me give you another one like this, infinitely many, before we do a 3 by 3. -2x plus 6y equals to 6. 3x minus 9y equals to a -6. So let's do that first. Oh, sorry. -2, 6, 4, 3, -9, -6. So that's the first thing you do. So multiply by the reciprocal, which is
-1/2.
-1/2 times row 1, right? -1/2 times -2. -1/2 times 6, and a -1/2 times 4. So I get a 1, a -3, and a -2. Perfect. After you do that, we have to make this guy a 0. So go ahead and write down the equation. I'll write it down in a little bit, but I'm just going to read the statement, which says, to make a 0, multiply the row with the 1 by the opposite of the number you want to make a 0. Add that to the row you want to make a 0. So I want to make my row that has a 1 is row 1. I want to make this a 0, so the opposite of this is a -3. And which row do you want to make the 0 in? The second row. So did you get the whole bottom row to be 0, 0, 0? Yeah, so that tells you, hey, it's infinitely many, so I need to do some weird stuff up there with the equation, right? So I know that this guy's x minus 3y equals to a -2. So my answer, I know my last one's going to be a y. Because I only have x and y, that's going to be y. I need to solve this for x. So x equals,
3y. 3y minus 2.
and that's it, 3y minus 2. And that's your answer,
3x.
3y.
Oh, wait a minute.
You solve for x. So on your assignment, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of them is going to be like this, but it's a 3 by 3. So we're going to do a 3 by 3 next. Now, once again, my people who were not here on Monday, and if you have not seen the video that I sent, maybe some of this is confusing, but you need to go back and see that video. I know it's none more than an hour, and it's not. I would rather watch Disney Plus or Hulu or whatever, you know. I understand, but we need to. All right, so 3x minus 4y minus z equals to 6. 2x minus y plus z equals to a -1. 4x minus 7y minus 3z equals to 13. And I'm going to put over here for my people who are not here, our goal. 1, 0, 0, number. 1, 0, number 1. When you have a 3 by 3, this is your goal, to make a 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, and make that a 1. That's the goal. Oh, gosh. Oh. So we take the leading coefficients, the numbers in front, to make that matrix. That's what we're doing. I have to make this a 1. Anytime you make a 1, you multiply by the reciprocal. The entire row you have to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 3 should have been
1/3.
1/3 times row 1 equals to row 1. So go ahead and do the math for that. And you do it times each number that is in your first row. Now you might have fractions. You just work with them for a little bit. Pray that they leave, but sometimes they don't. And the recommendations, always try to stick to the fractions because like in this one, you're gonna have 1.3333. You don't wanna put that. Go to math, enter on your calculator and it changes it to a fraction. Math, enter, it changes it to a fraction. All right, so I did the first operation and that is what I got. If you know what you're doing, keep working. I just don't want to go too fast because I have 2, 4, 5 people who are not here on Monday here. I still kind of want to go a little slow. So the next thing you want to do is change this guy to a 0. So remember, and really this goes for my people who weren't here. Which row has a 1? So it's row 1 times the opposite of the number you want to make a 0. So I have to multiply by what? -2. And I add it to the row where I want to make the 0, which is row 2.
I remember it from when I took it. It took us most of us the whole class to get this.
Yes, it is.
But we got it.
We did.
We did.
That was a smile on my face for once.
Yay! So -2 times row 1 plus 2. -2 times thirds plus 1. So you use your calculator because it's fractions. -2 times 1 plus 2 is 0. -2 times a -4 plus a -1.
7.
5/3. -2 times a -1/3 plus 1.
1/3.
5/3 also. And -2 times 2 plus a -1. -5. Yeah, because it's a -1. So now you make who a 0?
The 4.
The 4. So write down your little statements. Now, by the way, on your test, you could go from here, give me this, and go straight to this. If you feel like I don't need to be showing this work, you could just go. This is not required on your test. The only reason we're doing it is to make sure we don't make a mistake. But this is not required. So if you don't put this, it's not going to be wrong. But if you put it, great. It's going to keep you from making careless mistakes. So write down your next equation of what you think is going to happen. Is this what you got? Because we're making a 0. We're making the 4 into a 0. And we're changing row 3. So we add it. And we love it. And we're almost done. So go ahead and type that into the calculator, all those, and see what you get. So what's -4 times -4/3 plus a -7?
-5/3.
-5/3. So -4.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Sorry. -4 times a -1/3 plus a -3. -5/3 also, and -4 times this is a positive. -8 plus 13 is a positive 5. So we finished with the first column. You already did your 1, 0, 0, which is perfect. So on the next column, you start off by making a 1 in the middle, making this guy into a 1. So how do we make anything a 1 multiplied by v? Reciprocal. So what is a reciprocal? 3/5. 3/5 times row 2 equals to the new row 2. So 3/5 times 0. 3/5 times 5/3. 3/5 times 5/3. And 3/5 times a -5. So 3/5 times 0 is 0. 3/5 times 5/3 is 3/5 times 5/3 is 3/5 times a -5 is negative. Yeah. 3/5 times a -5. 3/5 times a -5. Okay. Everybody caught up? Okay. Let's hold on because we're approaching the very end. So I'll chill. If you know what's next, go ahead and do the next step. So everything that we've been doing to right now, it's everything we learned on Monday, correct? So I think we're going for.
Quick question.
Yes, talk to me.
So where you have the highlighted 5/3, is the reason that's highlighted is because our goal is to have it at 1, right?
Yes, like that's my next step. I'm working on this number to make it a 1.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's what. So here I highlighted this because this is what I'm working on, making it a 0.
Right.
Yes. You got it, Jessica.
So the goal is 1, 0, 0.
1, 0. Number 1, 0.
1, 0. I had it. That's not my goal. So, 5.
So now it's to make who a what?
Negative 5/3 of 0.
Okay, so if you know what you're doing, go ahead and do it.
I can't remember the formula, like which, the R2, I can't remember which one.
Well, it's because it's not, ask yourself this. Which row has the 1 when I'm working with this number? Row 2. So I'm working on this number. Who has the 1? This guy. So row 1, you multiply it by the opposite of the number you're trying to make a 0. Who are you trying to make a 0 right now, Jamie?
-5/3.
So what is the opposite of negative 5/3?
Positive 3/5.
It's just the,
Oh.
not the reciprocal, but the opposite. So if this is negative, I need a positive 5/3. So a positive 5/3 times row 2. Now, which row are you trying to make the 0 in? Row 3. That gives you a new row 3. So if you ask yourself those questions, what number am I making? A 0. Which row has the 1 when I'm working with the middle column? This guy, right on top of it. Row 2. What's the opposite of a negative 5/3? A positive 5/3. And who am I trying to make the 0 in? In row 3.
So when you're making something a 0, that's when you do the adding, but when you're making it a 1, you don't do any adding?
You just multiply. That's it.
Okay, see, that's what I'm trying to.
So it's in making a 1 is multiplication. In making a 0, it's multiplication and addition. Multiplication and addition. So we only have one more problem after this one. That's it.
For a class?
Now, if somebody wants to stay behind, and I still need to see my people who were not here on Monday, because I have something for y'all. All right, so I'm hoping you're already calculating, making all these fun calculations. 5/3 times 0 plus 0. 5/3 times 1 plus negative 5/3. 5/3 times 1 plus negative 5/3. 5/3 times negative 3 plus a 5. Use those fingers and those calculators. Type in those numbers. What are we getting? So I get A,
0,
A,
0,
A.
0.
So I am done with all those rows, multiplication, everything. This tells you, hey, you have infinitely many solutions, but I still have to do a little bit of work because I have to still get my 3 answers in my parentheses, right? So I'm going to go on to the next page. I'm just going to copy this right over to the next page, okay? So I have a 1 negative 4/3, negative 1/3, 2, 0, 1, 1, negative 3, 0, 0, 0, and 0. Okay, so please keep in mind, my answer consists of X, Y, Z. The last one's going to be Z. It's going to be given. On your assignment, you're going to have 3 bullets. 1 bullet where it says put an answer. Second bullet says no solution. And the third bullet says infinitely many, and the Z is already in there. So your job is to figure out who's Y and who's X in terms of Z. In terms of Z. So my first equation here, this is what? X
minus 4 over 3 y minus 1 over 3 z equals 2.
and my other one over here is plus z equals negative 3. So I'm supposed to solve for who here? Y. Because the only thing you have here is z, right? So this becomes y equals negative z minus 3. So guess who goes here? Negative z minus 3. I already found that one. Yay!
Where's that come from?
This
Yeah.
y, z equals negative 3.
So you do that for both of them?
So you're supposed to do it for all three if you had all three, but here I only have that one and that one, so yes. Okay, so I already know y is negative z minus 3. Yes?
Yes.
I could tell you I don't like this equation because of those two fractions. So my question to you, so it becomes a little bit friendlier, I need to get rid of those fractions. The only way to do that is to multiply by the denominator. Because I have two fractions, I can't do a reciprocal because you can't do two.
Okay.
So you just do times your denominator. What is 3 times x?
Yes.
When I do 3 times a negative 4/3, this just becomes a negative 4y. 3 times a negative 1/3 becomes a negative 1z. And 3 times 2 becomes a 6. That's nicer to work with right now. The only thing is this. I told you you need to solve for x, but it has to only be in terms of who? Z. Right now I have a y, which I can't have. Yes, ma'am.
Did you get the
Yes. So you always multiply by the denominator so you could get rid of fractions. So once again, I need to solve for x, but only in terms of z. So this y, I have a problem, but
You know what y is.
we know what y is. Very good. So I could substitute negative z minus 3 into the y. So I get 3x minus 4 negative z minus 3 minus 1z equals to 6. So let me repeat it again. I need to solve for x in terms of z. So I need to make sure I only have x and z's here, but I happen to have a y, but I already know what y is, so we're plugging it in there. Negative 4 times a negative z is
Positive 4z.
a positive 4z. Negative 4 times a negative 3 is a positive 12. Now, we combine what we can, and right now I should be able to combine these two, which gives me what kind of z?
3z.
So 3x plus 3z plus 12 equals to 6. But if you're trying to solve for x, everything needs to move over. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 12. 3x plus 3z equals to a negative 6. I need to subtract 3z. 3x equals negative 3z minus 6. And then I have to do what? Divide everything by 3. So x equals negative z minus 2. So that right there becomes your third answer up here. Negative z minus 2. So you would type that and that in there. So if I'm correct, I mean, it's either 4 or 5. I'm not sure which one it is. It's either 4 or 5. 4 or 5, not 12 or that. Now, we only have one problem after this. Your assignment for 6.2 has 4 problems, but I'm going to go and eliminate 2. So you're only going to get 2 problems there. That's it. One deals with caffeine, and the other one deals with fish, cats, and dogs. The thing is, the caffeine one, I read it, I worked it out, and I kept getting fractions and fractions. Well, I was reading it wrong, and I would hate that you go home and you work on it, and it's just something you're not doing right. So this is why we're gonna write the whole problem, analyze sentence by sentence, and work on it.
And this is 6-3 homework.
And this is a 6-2.
Okay.
Right now, everything we finished was 6-1, 6-3, because remember,
Yeah.
6-1 and 6-3 is together. So 6-1, 6-3, it is due 11/20. Next Wednesday. Make sure you work on it. I am going to cover one problem. Your problem, and that covers 6-2. That is also going to be due on 11/20. On Monday, we're covering 6-4, and we're done. That is it. All we have left over is a quiz over all 4 sections.
So the rest of the class periods will just be with you for fun?
Oh, we'll be working. We'll be working hard. Yes. So hard on planning a trip.
I know.
Okay.
I got 2 flights I need to use.
6.2. All right, let's try to do this. 6.2. Word problems. So here's the story.
You're not gonna think it?
You want me to sing it?
Like, here's the story.
You can still let us write down.
The pretty much? That refreshment
The other thing.
Huh?
You're still gonna let us write down the other thing.
You'll
Oh,
put it in.
this thingy, the sentence? Yeah, I'll put it later. 1 8-ounce serving each, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines, guys. So it's a whole story. 1 8-ounce serving each of coffee. I'm just kidding. Each of coffee, energy drink. I agree. And soda contains 202 milligrams of caffeine, one serving of coffee has 12 milligrams more caffeine than 2 servings of soda. 1 serving of energy drink contains 25 milligrams less caffeine than 1 serving each of coffee and soda. Find the amount of caffeine in 1 serving of each beverage. This is why I didn't major in English.
What is it?
Okay, so this is what problem, the first problem you're going to do for 6-2 looks. Exactly word by word. The only thing that's different is that 202, that 25, and that 12. So just the way we set this one up, you're going to set it up the same way, just change those numbers. So first thing, is the 8 ounce important? No, it's just telling you each serving is 8 ounces. That's it. So the first sentence says each coffee, energy drink, and soda contains 200 milligrams So 1 serving of each, 1, 1, and 1, and 1 is 202 milligrams. Before that, what am I missing? I need to assign a letter, right? So sorry, I forgot that. X is going to be my coffee. Y is going to be my energy drink. And Z is going to be my soda. Now, I don't want for you to think, oh, if I switch these, are my answers going to be wrong? They're not going to be wrong. It's just my X is going to say 50, your Z is going to say 20, but for me, it's going to say it the other way around. But if you know who's who, you're going to be okay. I usually like to X, Y, Z, keep them in order as they are mentioned. So the first equation, what would it be?
X plus Y plus Z equals 202.
Very good. So 1, 1, and 1 together, they are 202 milligrams of caffeine. Second one, what would it be?
X, Y.
So who equals that? X.
X.
X because 1 serving of coffee. X equals, we said what?
12.
Plus who? 12 plus 2Z, or 2Z plus 12, because it says twice soda. Soda is Z, and it's 12 milligrams more, so we have to add. So is everybody okay with that one? The third one, that's the fun one. Let's see if somebody actually gets it.
It has to be 25 or less. So that's energy drink is like wine. Y minus
Energy drink. Y equals
what,
negative
25.
So Y equals is correct.
25.
25 minus.
Negative 25.
So when we use the word
X plus Z minus 25.
okay, close.
X minus.
X plus Y plus.
So when I first, so don't write this down, but when I first did this, I did X plus Y minus 25. That's what I did. Because it says 25 less than the serving of coffee and soda. So coffee and soda, 25 less. Yes? It would be 50. Why 50?
Because it's 25 of each.
It says, yeah, there's a key word, each. It says each. So if we were to write this correctly, like correctly, right? It would be X minus 25 plus Z minus 25, because we're subtracting 25 from each. So when I was working this out, I just put minus 25, and it's like, why am I? It's not working. It's not working because of that little word right there, each. So it's 25 from each. So now let's make the matrix here, and then I'm going to turn the thing. This one's already in a good order, but this guy, who needs to move over?
The X. Well, everything.
Because remember, it has to be X, Y, Z equals to a number.
The 2Z.
So I need to move the 2Z, right? So X. So this becomes X minus 2Z equals to 12. How about the bottom one? Y equals X plus Z minus 50. So I combine the two 25s. But where do these X and Z have to go? On the other side. So it becomes a negative X. That's a positive Y. A negative Z equals to a negative 50. So I have 1 equation, 2 equation, 3 equation. And I'm going to write them one on top of the other just so you won't get confused. X, Y. And this is, once we solve this problem, this is it. Let's hope this goes. So we make it into a matrix and we start working with stuff. So is everybody okay with this?
Yes.
Yes?
Hang on before you proceed. How is that?
How is what? Sorry, talk to me. This one? This one.
Oh, you brought the X in.
This one. Yes, because we need to have all the variables on the left side. Yes. The 2Z? From this 2C, from this 2C, because it said 2 servings of soda.
So if there's no Y in the middle.
We're going to put a 0 when we do the matrix.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to fold this way. Write down my matrix up here, which is 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 0, negative 2, 12, negative 1, 1, negative 1, negative 50. Okay, so everybody okay with that matrix? I'm going to flip this because there's no Y's.
But how do you make it into a 1?
How do you make it? Oh, right now it's going to happen. Remember, 1, 0, 0, then we worry about that one right now. You wait, and see how beautiful life is. All right, so this one's already a 1, so we don't have to worry about it. But we have to make this guy into a 0. So, which row has a 1? What is the opposite of 1? And which row do you want to make a 0?
Row 2.
There you go. Here we go. It's a party in 1476. No, I don't even think that's this room. This is 1539. Yeah, sorry. Negative 1 times 1 plus 1. Negative 1 times 1 plus 0. Negative 1 plus 1 plus negative 2. 1 times 2. 4, 5, 5. So my new middle row will be
0, negative 1. So negative 3.
And
Negative 2, 2 plus 12. 10, 2,
negative 180. Use those calculators. Alrighty. So I got a 1, I got a 0, but now I have to make this a 0. So which row has a 1 in that column? Row 1. What's the opposite of a negative 1? 1. Plus, which row are you trying to make a 0? Row 3. So nothing happens to my first 2 rows. We just rewrite. Dun, dun.
Is that first equation, right?
Nay, probably not. No, you're right. Thank you. Dang. Thank you, sir. 1 times 1. Now is it good? Yes. So 1 times 1 plus negative 1 is 0. 1 times 1 plus 1? 2.
2.
1 times 1 plus a negative 1 is
0.
1 times 202 plus a negative 50 is 152. All right, so I am done with the first column. So the only thing I need to do with the middle number, which I need to make a 1, and it's a negative 1 over 1, the reciprocal is still going to be a what? A negative 1. I multiply negative 1 times row 2. a -1 times row 2 to make this into a +1, because that's what you're aiming for. So we have -1 times 0, -1 times -1, -1 times -3, and a -1 times a -180.
And why do you do by negative one? I thought you do by.
So the reciprocal. So
Yes.
remember, I have a -1. It's like if it were over 1.
Right, right.
The reciprocal of that is still -1 over 1, which is
Right.
a negative
I'm still on. Okay. Got
yes. And I know that one's tricky because all the other ones they haven't been 1, so they make it becomes a fraction. So 0, 1, 3, positive 180. Whoa. Now we work on who? The 2. Making the 2 into a. So where the 2 is at, in the column that the 2 is at, which row has the 1?
it.
Row 2. I know this one does too, but you need to work with the one that you made, that you created. So it is row 2 times the opposite of 2, which is a. And we add it to the row we want to make the 0 in, which is row 3. So go ahead and do the math. Almost there. What is -2 times 190 plus 152? 228? Okay.
No, negative.
You sure? Is it -28?
Why did you do 2 times 190?
Be-
Where'd that come from?
because it's times row 2.
I thought -2 coming
228, yeah. So it's -2 times row 2 plus 152. Right? What did you multiply -2 by? Okay. So 10010, we're one operation away, which is making this little friend of ours into a 1 by doing the reciprocal, which is -1/6. So your goal is to make it into a positive, so this is why we need to do a negative times negative is a positive. So -1/6 times 0, -1/6 times 0, -1/6 times -6, and a -1/6 times -228. One six times 0, 1/6 times 0, -1/6 times -6, 1, and -1/6 times 38. How beautiful is that? Now, how many equations can I get from here? 3. 1, 2, and 3. So this is where we stop. Then we do everything algebraically from here. So the first equation is going to be
X plus 5 plus Z equals
202. Next equation is y plus
3 is 90 plus 130.
equals 190. And my third equation,
Z equals 38.
z equals 38. So I already have z, I already have 38. So that already tells me the caffeine into a soda, because that's what the soda is, the z is 38. Now, you use this and you plug it in this one to figure out y. And then you use y and z and you plug it into this one to figure out x. So let's do this one. So we know z, this becomes y plus 3 times 38 equals to 190. So we're substituting a value. What's 3 times 38? 114. So what do I do to solve for y? And 190 minus 114 is 76. So we already found two answers. I take both of these and you bring over here. So this becomes x plus 76 plus 38 equals 202. What is 76 plus 38? 114. So weird, but it is. What do we do? Subtract 114 and 202 minus 114 tells me it's 88. So my answer, 88, comma, 76, comma, 38. Coffee, energy drink, and soda. So right now I'm gonna make sure and I go eliminate the other problem. So one just like this one, the other one's gonna deal with fish, caffeine, and fish, cats, and dogs. So those of you who were here on Monday, a little bit better today, we're good. Those of you who were not here, you're still alive. All right, so here's this for those of you who want to see that. It's kind of, so